Hey, Matt and Amber.
Hey,
Where are we going to be 1 week from today?
we're going to be in jolly old England. Hello, mate.
That's
Cheerio.
Okay, yeah.
absolutely right. And if you want to hear more of that classic Matt Chrisman flawless British accent,
Oops, your uncle.
we have 3 shows.
Fancy a crisp?
We will be fancying all the crisps all over the 2 cities of the United Kingdom, the twin jewels of the Royal Crown. We will be in London on December 9th. That show is almost sold out, so we have added a second show, London, December 10th. Tickets available for both those shows, but the 10th show, the show on the 10th just opened up, and in Liverpool on December 11th, the day before the election.
A hard day's night.
Yes, it will be a hard day's night. We will be doing only Beatles jokes the entire time
It's
there.
true.
I'm certain that will not get old.
Nope.
Oh, I love it there.
Yes, at all. So 9th and 10th in London, the 11th in Liverpool, UK, Chapo election specials.
Jez is going to do it.
He's going to
and
do it.
I got to say, I'm sort of jealous of, Matt, Amber, and Virgil. They
'Cause
get
we're
to,
hot?
Yeah, well, for that reason, obviously. But also, you get to go to the UK, and thanks to the Tories, you guys can buy the NHS now.
Yeah.
You're going to spend some of that Patreon money buying a national health insurance system.
I'm just going to come back with like MRIs.
I think I could fit one in my antechamber.
My pockets will be full of insulin, which I will not declare on the way back. So yes, the tickets are available for all 3 of those shows. New show just added December 10th in London. Link in episode description. Go come out and see us. It'll be fun.
Chapo UK. Let's go.
Let's go, mates.
Okay, we're rolling.
Rolling. What?
Greetings, friends. It is your Chapo, a twice-weekly podcast that I think is the only one that can give you the guarantee of absolutely no malarkey, flim-flam, or monkey shines ever.
I just want to say something. Like, you got all types of guys being where they do all the time. But when listen, man, all right? It's like when you get into the Oval Office day one, you got to be around who you got to be to see. And if you're not seeing who you want to go to be who you are all the time, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Hindu, or just any other type of holiday, see, you're not gonna excuse me. You're not gonna excremate what we're trying to do with the current president. And when you're not being that where you are, you gotta do who you know. Thank you.
What did we all think of Joe Biden? What do you think, Joe and Jill? They still got that chemistry, that magic touch.
Yeah,
just little nibble of the fingers,
little snack action.
When your wife puts her finger in front of where you wanna go, you got to be who you said you were gonna say to do.
I just remember like typing. I don't remember it actually, but I woke up and saw that I had sent just the word malarkey to the group chat, and I don't remember if I had any observations on it or if it was just like a reminder for myself later. But anyway, the Biden campaign's really heating up.
It was a reminder of the thing. You were reminding yourself of the thing that you don't want.
Right.
You're like, malarkey?
Right.
No thanks.
Yeah.
Get it away from me. I mean, yeah, no, he has his campaign bus. It just says no malarkey on it.
Yes.
Which is like
enough of this
More
malarkey.
stealing Irish valor.
Yeah, because he's a fucking kraut. People need to understand this. He's a phony Irishman.
That's so cool.
He is less of an Irishman than De Niro, okay?
Yeah.
Well, he's ripping off the Straight Talk Express, which is like the oldest man sounding thing possible back in 2008.
But also,
2004,
it's also specifically a reference to something he said to Paul Ryan in their debate when in 2012, the VP debate.
Many years ago.
He said this is malarkey about Paul Ryan, and I remember at the time all of the web left Democrats, like the Daily Kos people, were like, "Oh my God, Joe just annihilated Paul Ryan, blew him off the stage," and I think in his mind, that's still like a ringing moment in his career that everyone wants to be reminded of.
That is like the last impressive thing he did. Like it's not
just
really
It's also the
impressive.
last thing he
on live
remembers.
Yeah.
television.
Yeah.
And just yelling sassafras.
Yeah, I like he thinks he was debating Barry Goldwater at this point, but like he did like kick the shit out of Paul Ryan.
Yeah, and it was
which is
like-
like more an indictment.
But
on
it was
Paul
like an
Ryan.
alpha moment. He
Yeah.
felt like an alpha. And basically, there are no moments in existence of Democrats feeling like alphas in a public,
It's true. He is an alpha too. I mean, like a lot of his appeal
Yeah.
to people
He's a daddy.
is like does that, and like he said he would punch Trump in the face,
He
and
did
like
say
I
that.
think people just want to remember a time when Democrats weren't pussies, even if it
Exactly.
means they're insane
Yeah.
old men.
Listen, buddy, listen, buddy.
He's like, hey, those like old, like crooked Irish ward healers, like those Tammany Hall guys
Yeah.
from the Daily Machine, who they're built like refrigerators, and they had a toothpick in their mouth, and they were always like handing out the local patronage jobs, and they could just beat your ass up on a Friday night. Like that kind of fucking Democrat.
You know what? The ascendancy of Biden is a testament to the crisis of masculinity.
It's
in this
true.
country.
That's very true.
Biden's like he's the most dialectical candidate because he's the type of politician that replaced those guys, like policy wise, but he just
he carries around their skins.
right. He just has
He
their
wears their
affect.
skins. Yeah.
Well, speaking of that type of old style corrupt politician and Irish people in general, I just want to say I hope everybody, listeners, you took the time over the Thanksgiving holiday
Yes.
to, yes, watch The Irishman, but much more importantly, make every woman in your life also watch The Irishman, just as a way of saying thank you.
Yes.
I haven't watched.
Here
it
you
yet.
go.
For being around with a dude.
I also I think I've told you this story before, never saw the final 8 minutes of Hoffa because I got in a screaming match with my ex, who I was watching it with, over whether or not Jimmy Hoffa was justified in using mob muscle to bust up scabs. You can guess which side I was on. He slept on the couch for 2 days.
This is the Nicholson DeVito Hoffa movie.
Yes,
which
which was very good.
I actually just rewatched it. I'd never seen before. Very
It was
underrated.
amazing, yeah.
DeVito's a great
It's
director.
written by David Mamet.
And you know what? The makeup is excellent. Physical effects.
He looked like Nick Hoffa. That's for
Amber-
sure. And he sounded like him too.
I'm going to spoil it for you here. The very last scene of
Oh, no,
Hoffa,
don't-
I haven't
no
seen it
spoilers.
yet. I haven't seen it yet.
What happens? What
He's
happens to
killed
Jimmy Hoffa?
by
Frank Whaley.
Frank Whaley, the young guy at the diner who, like, DeVito is like when it keeps in the present, he's like talking to this young teamster at the diner.
That's
Turns
him.
out he's a hitman for the mob.
Yeah,
Damn.
but that's bullshit. Like they're just gonna bring Hoffa back in Hoffa Infinity War.
Listeners, would you like to be a part of this history?
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm pretending to be from the Midwest.
I heard you post screenshots. Sorry, that was Catherine's joke. I steal enough from her. But again, to say thank you, I made her watch The Irishman again.
Yes.
And we saw it in the theater together. All right, so we brought up, the non-Irishman of this campaign, Joe Biden, the fake.
The plastic patty.
Actually, a guy who apparently
Prussian
in his
man.
life had some contact with Frank Sheeran.
Yes.
That-
probably.
Yeah. I think there was it is like that he met someone, either Frank Sheeran or someone in that
It
universe.
has to have.
Forget it. I don't have the details in front of me, but I think for the next hour or so, I would like to take a tour through the other Democratic candidates and check in on all of them, what they're doing. I would like to get to a absolutely delicious piece in the New York Times that is a autopsy of the Kamala Harris campaign, and I got to say that it's the thing I've been most glad to be totally wrong about this election cycle.
I remember that 1 week when I was scared of Kamala Harris, last February.
Well, yeah, no, it was literally 1 week, and then, like I said, she opened her mouth, and
It's
she's
truly
more
true.
wooden than Hillary.
She really does
She
not have
opened her
that.
mouth and swallowed a bunch of Xanax.
That announcement rally. They were she had 20,000.
20,000
She had the
people,
biggest
yeah.
until
Yeah.
Bernie and Queens. Yeah,
Yeah.
the biggest campaign.
Well,
now-
and
yeah.
who would have seen it coming though? She had such a winning team.
Well,
Yeah, she got. Yeah,
We'll get into
Yeah.
the
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 aspects
funniest
of her
thing, though,
team,
the
but-
funniest thing about Harris, though, is that because she looks so good on paper, she could be all races to all people. A woman from California, the whole state party basically jumped on her back, and she got endorsed out of the gate by most of the Democrats in the state of California, and now they just all look completely impotent because she was polling behind Yang at this point in California.
I want to get to this big article on Kamala
Owned.
Harris, but before there, it does behoove us to check in on Elizabeth Warren, whose campaign has hit a bit of a speed bump, shall we say, based entirely
the free ride
around
is over.
Yeah, well, based entirely around the rollout of her Medicare for all those who want it plan.
Yes,
You know.
when she decided to pull the mask off and reveal the Mayor Pete underneath.
What's so fascinating about that, though, is that like pundits are noticing that she's taken a slight dip in the polls, and hilariously, they're all attributing it to the fact that she tied her campaign to Medicare for all, and not the fact that she backed away from
It's
it.
baffling. Like Bernie isn't going anywhere,
Bernie's-
and he's Mr. Medicare for all. Meanwhile, she was going up while being for Medicare for all. It was only when she decided to take to bow to the pressure of the media and stuff that all of a sudden she goes
Matt,
down.
you have another to take on this, but the other thing I want to note is the other thing they're saying is they're like, well, Warren is dipping slightly in the polls, but like Bernie clearly isn't benefiting from
Yeah.
it. Like, why is that? And it's just like, well, because all of her support goes to Pete Buttigieg.
Yes.
Which just shows you that, like,
As I said
Yeah.
earlier, Warren supporters are not that many of them are going to be committed to Bernie.
these people are begging for a reason
Yes.
to vote for someone like Mayor
Absolutely.
Pete. And I think as polling will show out, it's actually Biden is the guy who, if he, just like walks into a swimming pool and drowns himself or something, most of his
As
supporters,
I said.
yes, Amber, correct
Yeah,
again.
no, that's the thing. Is that the Warren supporters were always not going to have a class interest in common with a working class political movement that Bernie represented. That was always the case. And the thing is that those Biden supporters, because he's to the right of Warren in some way, people think, well, those voters are to the right. No,
No,
they're
they're
the ones
voting
who
for
are
Papa.
voting for Papa. Those are low information voters. And guess what? In any political coalition, they're going to be hugely important.
Right.
Like even if they don't
People
know
who
or care
respect
that much.
feistiness.
Even if they don't care that much or know that much about issues, but if they like Bernie because he seems honest and they trust him,
He is
that's
also
all you
feisty.
need, and that's what you're going to need out of tons of people to
Yeah.
sustain a majority.
Right.
Yeah, no
like-
one likes Biden's policy positions.
Yeah.
They like that he,
He makes them feel good.
yeah, and he threatens to punch people. He's
Right.
cool.
Biden like doesn't have policy positions. Like they fucking ask him like, what's your healthcare thing? And he's like, I think all types of people should go to the doctor and go, hey man, you're a really great guy. And it's like, right. It's like the political media has spent like the last 20 years just doing bullshit like, who won the dinner plate primary? Just fucking idiotic bullshit. And they now think the American electorate is focused on policy when like the way most people like take these candidates in is not really through fucking policy at all. Like, of course, like, yeah, Liz supporters are going to want someone who they feel is like closer in personality and like cultural signaling than Liz. And, Biden supporters are just going to, when Biden finally like decapitates himself with an electric razor, are going to look themselves in the mirror and go, it doesn't matter whether you're celebrating Christmas or the other one, you can be who I want to see as my neighbor that I vote for.
Because they're not going to be, even if they aren't ideologically sophisticated, they don't have a class conflict with the Sanders campaign. These fucking Warren supporters they don't have the same class interest. End of story. And that is what we found out today. One of the reasons that she ended up switching from Medicare for all to the Mayor Pete two-step plan was because of the composition of her voting base. There's an article in the Washington Post today that talked about her decision to switch on Medicare for all and embrace choice. It says here that on the ground of the early states, Warren heard skeptical questions about Medicare for all in her public town hall meetings and during private meetings with her staff. Her staff frequently arranges with key community leaders before she goes on stage. Here we go. The exchanges were a reminder that many in Warren's base are largely educated, affluent voters who might not be ready to give up their private health plans because these are people who already have good health insurance, the best there is in the private market. So they actually do have something to lose with Medicare for all in the sense that, oh no, now poor people can access my level of medical care. And now I have to worry that's not going to be as good for me.
And I got a note about this, like the Warren, the committed Warren people have now developed this line where the smartest of them realize that you cannot with a straight face make the argument anymore that her and Sanders are indistinguishable from one another.
That's the
Because,
malarkey.
for like basically a year now, that was the argument, which was a de facto argument for Warren, because it's like, well, if they're the same, then it behooves you to support the woman and not the old white guy, blah, blah, blah. You can't make that argument with a straight face anymore. So what they're doing now is that they're saying that how preemptively disappointing she is as a candidate is actually very smart on her behalf and good for us, the people, because it'll mean she'll disappoint us less later when she's actually president.
Yeah. I mean, that really is like she's playing three-dimensional chess because it's boring and no one cares.
But this really goes to show that what matters about a politician is the composition of their base, not their personal views. Because so much argument about Liz Warren gets bogged down because the question is, what does she actually believe? It doesn't fucking matter what she believes. The matters is that her base is a bunch of well-off people who aren't really wouldn't really have a skin in the game the way that Bernie's base is. And that's what determines, that's where it flows up from. The policy change flew up from her base, not down from Liz's personal beliefs.
And also, like, the middle class are not loyal. So,
Those hoes
like,
ain't loyal. Always. They go with the hot hand. They go with who looks like they're winning.
Of course.
And that means they can be the tail end of a working class like movement, but they cannot lead one. They cannot lead a movement.
Guarders.
Yes. Exactly.
Which is good. Like, I mean, it's good for us. Like, it is, you know, it sounds like sort of like overly romantic, but Bernie's base is stronger and more committed than any middle class base could ever be because they're not rear guarders.
And because of that, it also gives us, you know, us personally, and then you, the listener, we were 100% right on Warren.
It's awesome. Being
Everyone
right
tried to tell you otherwise, but like now it's undeniable. And I would just say, like, keep at it.
Yep.
The Warren supporters, they're very weak.
They're weak.
They're very weak.
So weak.
They really don't like people being mean to them.
Oh, they can't handle it.
So just full force ahead. And what they'll always try to do is just like, wow, you're only hurting Bernie by being mean to me.
You were never ever.
Yeah, if you
going to
actually
be for
gave a
Bernie.
shit, this would not register.
Exactly. You cared about any of this shit, you wouldn't have supported her to
No,
begin
but the
with.
thing is, they can't, the future of the human race and, dignity for all humans, but someone being mean to me on Twitter, I don't know. You never gave a shit.
They're very weak, and do not believe them when they're just like,
Do not believe their lies.
It would
Whereas
really
a good apolitical Biden supporter, they just like a strong man.
Right. If you criticize Biden on Twitter, you don't really get swarmed. You get like a reply from like a 62-year-old retired like RN who's
And they
who's
here are my
who's like-
grandchildren.
Right. She's like, right. They're like, my grandson got dressed up as Trump for Halloween. You're like, that has nothing to do with anything. And you're like, but like, have a good day, I guess. Like,
You know what? They really are the just want to grill base.
yeah, they
Absolutely.
rock. I
The beauty
love
part of
them.
that is that means that 90% of all of the web vitriol flies over their heads. Yeah. They're like, yes, I think Joe Biden is a corn cob. Damn right.
Yeah. No, you're like fucking white knuckling your keyboard and crying, and you're like, Joe Biden's a fucking bitch. You're gonna get memed on, and
And he's going to dab on him.
Mike Gravel's gonna dab on Biden, and you're that pleasant 63-year-old who's just on the best cocktail of
hell yeah.
drugs you could
Oh, yeah.
imagine is just like, well, I hope you get some good grilling in today.
But the beauty part of that is that means that when Biden starts falling and they got to go somewhere else, there's going to be no hard feelings.
Yeah.
well, the Warren
Bernie's-
people just keep
Bernie's
They
trying to.
got lives. They just taught their granddaughter to fly a kite
Exactly.
over the weekend.
they're they're 72 years old and are just now like getting into model airplanes.
Yeah.
Like they rule.
Like those
They're
Kamala
second
people,
Lisa
the
alive.
hardcore,
Yeah.
the Japanese islander Kamala people, they'll do their own third party or they'll like do ritual suicide before they vote for Bernie.
I don't think
But
the
these
Warren.
Biden people are like, whatever, dude.
the Biden people, okay, so if like the Kamala people are kind of like the Japanese holdouts in Okinawa, I guess the Biden people are like the Italian army.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Waiting to surrender.
They wandered
Just-
into Ethiopia.
They'll
just got
surrender to the
confused.
press corps.
Yeah.
They'll surrender to a medic who's going out to take a leak.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't want to fight it
I
tomorrow.
will say this though, as intense and type A as the Kamala people are, they're not going to commit ritual suicide because they all just came from Hillary and they're just going to move on to the next person. Like they are just bloodless, dead-eyed, They're sharks.
Can I say, like, I do kind of respect the Kamala people, like the diehards, because it is like
The K-Hive.
the K-Hive, the K-hole. Yeah, they're, I like kind of like them because it's like it's easy to be a diehard for someone who's winning. Like it's easy to just take someone who has momentum and be like, yeah, I've always loved them. You know, I've always been a fan. It's just like being like a fan of the New York Yankees, the winningest team in NYC baseball.
That's right.
But the ride or
right.
dies, I think they're the minority,
Right,
though. But there are
no, obviously. I mean, she's pulling it like just like below the margin of error. Like she's fucking dog shit. But it is awesome to like take a candidate like that and be like, yeah, I know she's pulling at 3%, but
I will die for her.
yeah, I'm not voting for anyone else. She fucking rocks. And it's like she doesn't even like really bring anything. But
She brings nothing.
I kind of like even
they can't really say why they like her.
yeah, like
I think it's her lustrous hair. She's
No,
great.
it's a
Whereas
good
the,
haircut.
the Warren people, wimps and simps, we've already seen about a third of them have already jumped
already
ship
peeled
to
off.
Pete Buttigieg. I think a small number of them will go to Bernie, but
Yeah.
the vast majority, but
Yeah.
only if you continue to be very, very
Brutal.
mean to them on Twitter.
They're paid pigs. They
Yes.
yearn for the stern daddy, and that could be you.
Just neg them, just
Yes.
dominate them completely. They can
The
be-
ones on Twitter
Yeah.
are not going to Bernie. There are probably people who are passive Warren supporters
Who see-
who will go
who
to Bernie,
witness-
and there's a few of them, but they're not the ones online.
No, but I think they are online, but they will witness what happens to the simps.
They will be exemplary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, the terror will be.
You're saying we're
swept out.
doing like
Yes.
a demonstration execution?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's like when Rome would crucify 1,000 people
Exactly.
on a road,
and
you know?
everyone knew. All right, I guess that slave rebellion's over.
So okay, yeah, but let's go into Kamala now because her campaign, boop, boop, boop,
Yeah.
flatline.
and it's about
That
to
is
come
not
back,
what those
baby.
machines sound like.
Well, I haven't spent a whole lot of time in hospitals, so I'm going from what cartoons have told me about what it sounds like when someone dies.
I go to the hospital every day just to cheer people up. I hear those machines literally every day.
So
of my life.
there is a big
He's
article.
reenacting Joker.
There's a big article in the New York Times that is kind of like a death knell for this campaign about like what went wrong. So I'd like to just dip
Apparently, they got 30 people to go on the record, which
Yeah.
is pretty much unprecedented if a campaign has any life left in it.
So like, yeah,
they're
there's
probably all just doing it to get out to find the next campaign.
Rats
trying to get
rats
that
fleeing the
footage.
ship.
well, actually, like what happened is one of her top advisors jumped ship to Mayor Bloomberg.
Yeah, that's
Oh my
brutal.
God.
Quit
That's the
Kamala for
worst.
Bloomberg.
She just
Quit
wants,
Kamala.
she wants that check. That's it. Get your,
Quit
get
Kamala
your
for a
bag.
guy who is not even running in the first 4 primaries because, it's just about the money, baby.
Right, like a guy who's like staking all his presidential hopes on winning the Little St. James primary. The real Super Tuesday.
All right, so this is the New York Times headline: How Kamala Harris's campaign unraveled.
Whoops.
Ms. Harris is the only 2020 Democrat who has fallen hard out of the top tier of candidates. She has proved to be an uneven campaigner who changes her message and tactics to little effect and has staff torn into factions. So, like, there's it's a long article, but there's some good stuff in here. So it begins here. In early November, a few days after Senator Kamala Harris's presidential campaign announced widespread layoffs and an intensified focus on Iowa, her senior aides gathered for a staff meeting at their Baltimore headquarters and pelted the campaign manager, Juan Rodriguez, with questions. What exactly was Ms. Harris's new strategy? How much money and manpower could they put into Iowa? And what would their presence be like in other early voting states? Mr. Rodriguez offered general tentative answers that didn't satisfy the room, according to 2 campaign officials directly familiar with the conversation. Some Harris aides sitting at the table could barely suppress their fury about what they saw as an undoing of a once promising campaign. Their feelings were reflected days later by Kelly Mellenbacher, the state operations director, in a blistering resignation letter obtained by the Times. This is basically the downfall bunker scene, but for Democrats. So, so resigning. What it goes on to say is that like this was an interesting detail that I had no idea about until I read this article. One of Kamala's top people running her campaign is her sister.
Sure.
Well, like who knows you better?
Hey, it worked for the Kennedys.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Boom.
Goes here. Even to some Harris allies, her decline is more predictable than surprising. In one instance after another, Ms. Harris and her closest advisors made flawed decisions about which states to focus on, issues to emphasize, and opponents to target. all the while refusing to make difficult personnel choices to impose order on an unwieldy campaign, according to more than 50 current and former
God
campaign
damn.
staff and members and allies. Many of her own advisors are now pointing a finger directly at Ms. Harris. In interviews, several of them criticized her for going on the offensive against rivals, only to retreat and for not firmly choosing a side in the party's ideological feud between liberals and moderates. I mean, Matt, this speaks to your point where her biggest mistake was trying to start the campaign as like a progressive,
As a leftist.
yeah, or not.
No,
as
she
a
went
fake-
for the. She was going to be on the left wing. She was pro Medicare for all. She was originally going to be the electable, diverse leftist candidate. I mean, within the confines of the Democratic establishment, obviously. And then, she lost credibility on that instantly because she did the Warren Medicare for all blink in the face of media scrutiny instantly.
Except she did it over 10 years, which is even funnier.
But she blinked like the first debate. Like she buckled instantly. And so then boom, she immediately lost her credibility on the left. And then she tried to go to the moderate position, but there's no room there. And nobody bought it at that point. She'd already been mean to Biden and they didn't like that.
Here's another good thing from this article. It features several characters who you may remember from Chapo Classic episode, the Donna Brazil book episode.
Oh, God,
Yeah.
no.
It's Representative Marcia Fudge.
Oh, no.
Let's go, baby.
God,
Representative-
I still wonder about Donna.
I have told her there needs to be a change, said Ms. Fudge, one of several
Not
women
funny.
of, women of color who have been delivering hard-to-hear advice to Ms. Harris in recent weeks. The weakness is at the top, and it's clearly Juan. He needs to take responsibility. That's where the buck stops. So it says, like the subheader of one of like the graphs is, a team of rivals with no clear message. The fact that Ms. Harris is now...
That just sounds like a group of people that don't like each other.
the fact
It's just
that-
a bad party.
When she entered the race in January, she bet that the early voting states of Iowa and New Hampshire would matter less to her than her political fortunes in South Carolina, which is predominantly black Democratic electorate. In this view, a strong showing in South Carolina, which votes fourth, would vault her into racially diverse Super Tuesday states like California that would propel her candidacy. So for much of the year, she focused on competing against Joe Biden in South Carolina and beyond. What her campaign did not anticipate was that Mr. Biden would remain strong with many black voters and that Senator Elizabeth Warren and Mayor Pete Buttigieg would rise as threats in Iowa and New Hampshire.
I said this before as well. Black people like Joe Biden more than they like Kamala Harris.
There you go.
Well, that's pretty clear by now.
Her assumptions about the issues that would inspire Democrats were also muddled. She began running on a tax cut aimed at lower and middle income voters and then turned to a pay raise for teachers. But those proposals also did little to animate voters, especially those riveted by the ambitious policies of Ms. Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders. And before long, Ms. Harris was downplaying what were her signature proposals. For a time, she sought to highlight a pragmatic agenda about matters she said voters thought about while lying awake at 3 a.m. Today, her aides are given to gallows humor about just how many slogans and one-liners she has cycled through, with one recalling how to, quote, the speak truth spring gave way to a 3 a.m. summer before the current Trump-focused justice winter.
Good Lord.
From the start, the campaign structure seemed ripe for conflict. I mean, they talked about how like they split her campaign headquarters between the Bay Area and Baltimore with like two different people basically running two different campaigns, often at odds with one another.
Sounds like a great way to organize it.
That's how, if we learned anything from Obama, it's if you want to accomplish something, just get everyone who hates each other and make them fight it out.
There were also generational fissures. One advisor said the fixation that some young staffers have with liberals on Twitter distorted their
That's
view
right.
of what issues and moments
We did
truly
it.
mattered.
Fam, we did it. We
broke their
got in their
brains.
heads. We broke their brains. They were in there like swatting flies on Twitter, like, oh, these pesky. She's not a cop. She's not a cop. It's like, you idiots. Nobody cares about that in the greater electorate.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going crazy with these Twitter gadflies, which is us. So take a bow, everyone. You own them.
No, they're not talking about you guys. They're talking about me. they're like Senator Harris would walk around the office for weeks wondering if Crazy Town's Butterfly was actually a good song, as I suggested. She would go, maybe it's time for me to watch Neon Genesis Evangelion.
You don't really think that's a good song, do you?
What
I
do
don't know.
you
It
think
depends.
is a
It
good
depends
song,
on
though?
like how. It depends on like how badly I need to feel something.
It depends also how badly he wants to troll you, someone whose favorite song, as you have said, is Camptown Races.
Yeah.
Butterfly is a terrible song. Okay, we all know.
Doo-da, doo-da.
Wanna run all night. Wanna run all day.
You know, sometimes you just gotta argue shit. You just gotta be like, Nip Tuck's better than Midsummer. You don't know what the fuck you mean.
Keeps them on their toes.
Yeah.
So it goes up. Basically, listener, take a bow. Once again, trolling made it happen. Fucked up their entire campaign.
Well, like Ian Sam is my
he's
favorite
great. He's
figure
great.
from the Kamala campaign. Who like he just like gives off a vibe like he has a son on Xbox who abuses him. I'm pretty sure he doesn't, but it's like I just like see I just see him coming home and there's just a room filled with like Monster Energy posters and like Master Chief sculptures, and he's just like, "Our internet sucks, Dad. You're a fucking pussy." And he like almost apologizes to him. But Ian Sam's like someone must have told him to stop, because for like 2 months he would just reply to every fucking like rose
He was
emoji.
like DMing people and emailing them. Oh wow, like, this is fair. Good coverage you got here. Wow,
Yeah.
real fair.
No, he
That guy owned.
DM'd someone who like this was like he DM'd like a political reporter who's like pretty much just middle of the road, like
Yeah.
boring, who just had said something like, "Wow, like Kamala's big thing at the debate about banning Trump's Twitter account really didn't land." And then like long paragraph DM just being
God.
like, "Normally I really respect your work, but like this is whiteness personified."
I have to say that is maybe the single most purely cringe moment I've ever witnessed in a debate.
Oh man.
Where she thought her moment was going to make the rest of the field join her demand for Twitter to ban Trump because he violates the terms of service. And it's not even that what he says is bad, but that it's not fair that he violates the terms of service and everyone else, they don't get to stay on when they violate the terms of service. They really the Democratic Party defined just whiny little hall monitors. All they care about is that the rules get followed.
Well, look at our staff, though. Like, they were definitely leading that charge. Like, what matters is Twitter, because
Yep.
they're the most bullyable people on
It's
earth,
true.
apparently.
Well, it goes on to say right here.
They could like they had this ability to like zero in on things that literally 5,000 people in America care about. Like it was just this tin ear for issues and statements that like for 5,000 people they're like, I've been waiting for someone to say that, and for the rest of Americans to just turn their heads sideways like a dog who heard a weird noise.
Remember the forgiveness policy that would literally only benefit me? Like the one person.
Oh yeah,
who-
the one that got that one that got plagiarized by
only
Mayor Pete.
Yeah.
It was only
his
for
Douglas
people
plan.
who had low income Pell Grants, so like poor people who needed a lot of money to go to college, who had started a business in a low income neighborhood
for 3 years.
for 3 years. So literally, Amber, the Brooklyn podcaster from Indiana. That's I don't know anyone else who would have
What I
benefited
like
from
about
that.
it though is that one of the worst, most like cartoonish neoliberal program that doesn't even help the people it's designed for. It got taken by Mayor Pete for his Douglas plan.
who made
Of
it
course,
even
yeah.
worse.
Yes.
Make it shittier.
Also, calling it the Douglas plan is some balls.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That is some
Oh, yeah.
balls.
Yeah.
True to his vision, true to Frederick Douglass's vision. Who told him he could do that?
It was everything else about it was so deeply offensive that like no one even commented on that.
Yeah.
It was like it's like, oh yeah, here's the Malcolm X national highway volunteer plan. Like what the fuck?
We're going to
dude?
increase minority entrepreneurship by any means necessary.
Eventually, they're gonna run out of people. They're just gonna start moving on to like Marcus Garvey, and like I can't wait.
I can't wait for
We're getting on that Black Star line to a earned income tax credit.
I would like to see Mayor Pete with that hat. Yeah, the Garvey hat.
Mayor Pete announces Thomas Sankara literacy program, charter school program. It was like the Three Stooges syndrome from Mr. Burns. There's just so much wrong with it that it all sort of canceled itself out.
By the way, this is all happening at a time when I keep reading stories about how like in Mayor Pete's South Bend, Indiana, like they are just literally like bulldozing the black neighborhoods like it's the West Bank or something like for developers.
Well, there was a headline yesterday that said that Mayor Pete was slow to realize that South Bend schools are not integrated.
Yeah, he's ready to be president. Yeah, if he's
like, are our schools segregated? He did not know, and it took him a while to realize.
Yeah.
well, I'm sure he'll be a faster
Which is weird
thinker.
because
And I'm sure the answer will be charter schools. That'll
of
somehow
course,
fix the
of
segregation,
course.
even though that's what creates segregation in the first place.
But Matt, to your point about the unbelievably cringeworthy stunt to try to get Twitter to ban Trump's account, it says here her own staff joked that it was not President Trump's account that should be taken offline as Ms. Harris urged, but rather their own trigger-happy communications team.
Boom.
Ian Sams. Was it Samuels or Sam?
Sam's.
Ian Sams, which
he
by
just
the way,
got called out
hilariously,
by the New York Times.
which by the way, hilariously, his name isn't even mentioned in this artitle.
But he was subtweeted as a bad poster in the New York Times. Can you imagine the fate worse than death?
So it goes on. Some of Ms. Harris's aides said she had better instincts than her brain trust. One official recalled that during the flight from Oakland to Iowa on the night she announced her campaign in January, Ms. Harris told senior members of her campaign team that she wanted to, quote, go stealth.
Okay.
However, instead of...
She was going to do a Halo insertion into Des Moines.
Senator Harris, this is a sneaking mission. You have to obtain support by the people you meet.
However,
By the way, there's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as
can
having
you-
better instincts than your brain trust because you are deferring to your brain trust, which means your instincts are bad. Just because you're ambivalent about something, you don't get credit for being like, I don't know.
Right. It's like, she doubted the terrible plans before signing off on them.
Yeah.
She would have said that about anything.
Also, a bad instinct, making your sister one of your chief campaign advisors. I mean, come on. So it goes here. However, instead of pursuing retail politics and introducing herself to voters in more intimate settings, the boudoir setting, as Ms. Harris suggested she preferred, her senior aides determined it was more important to cement herself in the top tier and play for big television moments, as one put it.
I will say this. They were correct about that because she is not a warm person.
oh, no.
Yeah.
I don't know if an intimate setting would have benefited her at all.
The second subhead of this article is just, quote, she lost me today.
Oh, no.
This is like a George Jones song, this article here. He stopped loving her today. Yeah. So it says, the organizational unsteadiness of Ms. Harris's campaign reflects a longtime personal trait, according to allies. She is a candidate who seeks input from a stable of advisors, but her personal political convictions can be unclear. So, yeah, once again, doesn't actually believe in anything.
Doesn't
But
really
again,
believe anything.
when they're
What?
like, oh, you're not going to get a good impression of who people are by doing these big events. It's like, well, you're not going to do that in 6 months either. Like, you can't just cram for the test of the American populace.
Yeah, that is a funny thing. It's like they actually think she's saying something by saying, oh, I don't want to go to a big rally to understand the people. I want to have, like, what? A bunch of 10-second conversations with
Right.
random people in diners. Like, that's going to add
shake
up
some
to any kind of
sweaty hands,
insight.
Yeah.
On criminal justice, one of Ms. Harris's calling cards, she did not
One
unveil
could say.
her own proposals until months after she began meeting with activists. Ms. Harris said she was being deliberate, but several aides familiar with the process said she was knocked off kilter by criticism from progressives and spent
Well, she was knocked off kilter by benzos.
Aides said her campaign at times appeared slow-mo, with certain top staff saying that they'd gone from the Justice Winter to the chopped and screwed January. Knocked off kilter by criticism from progressives again.
Yeah, did it, guys?
yeah.
Just
They were so rattled by that Kamala as a cop shit.
bullying works. Don't believe the hype. And spent months torn between embracing her prosecutor record and acknowledging some of its faults. At times, she avoided the topic, even initially rejecting her current campaign slogan, "Justice is on the ballot."
Damn, that's where they lost. That was a winning
That is some
slogan.
Wait a minute,
RoboCop
that's
sounding
the-
shit, though.
I didn't even know that was it until
Holy
now.
fuck.
That's
Justice
terrible.
is on the ballot.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
When it was presented to her earlier this summer.
Meat's back on the menu.
The McJustice is back.
At one point during the preparations, tensions flared so high that one senior aide pleaded with the candidate to provide some direction. "You know this stuff better than us," the aide said, according to those present.
The thing is, she doesn't.
No.
Yeah.
They're kissing her ass.
Yeah.
It was hardly the only time Ms. Harris has appeared uneasy or indecisive about whether to go on the offensive. In the the perfect example of that was the last fucking debate where they teed up for her a fucking softball to just knock Mayor Pete's little fucking howdy-doody head out of the park about the week of his unbelievably embarrassing, like inventing black support in South Carolina.
Didn't lay a glove on
and
it.
just whiffed it. I think probably intentionally.
His
I think
Smithers
so.
moment.
I honestly think it might. Yeah, I think they're hands off Mayor Pete. They're seeing how far they could roll that fucking snowball.
They're like,
up the
don't
hill.
touch him because they're rats. They're rats, and she's a sinking ship. So don't touch Mayor Pete.
And also, like, she probably knows that, like, her she's not going to be president.
Yeah,
she's
but
not
she
going to get the
could be
nominee.
his VP.
And she could see where
Attorney General.
where the gravity is going with
Yeah.
Pete. So she's like, I can't scorch his ass. in a
Buttigieg
fucking-
Harris.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh?
There you go. All right, there you go. So it goes
That's a winning ticket.
in the July debate. Ms. Harris did not-
That would lose. They would lose. I think
God,
they would lose. to
so
Trump.
much.
Every state to Trump. Literally.
In the July debate, Ms. Harris did not respond sharply to an attack on her prosecutorial record from Representative Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, even after Mrs. Harris prepared for the topic.
God
in the
bless
debate.
Tulsi, man.
She knows bullying works.
She is a mean girl. She's the meanest girl of all.
Tulsi's not really a mean girl.
She's not mean. She's a scrapper.
Tulsi, she has the vibes of like the computer kid who gets bullied too hard and then just one day beats the shit out of the
She hulks
football
out,
player.
yeah.
She's just
But
Hulk
she
out
never.
Tulsi.
She never directs her rage at anyone undeserving.
Tulsi has spoke up.
That's my. I want to moderate one of these debates, and like my question for Tulsi is like, so Tulsi, like a lot of people are wondering, like, what fucking kind of person are you? Are you like?
What's your deal?
Are you like? You're not stupid, right? You're just like anxious or something. Like, what's up?
Is that
Why are
the
you like
inch-
that?
is
It's
that the
really
in-
difficult to get a read off her.
Tulsi, is that the inch stare?
yeah. No, Tulsi is the Inche candidate.
For sure.
Yeah.
By the way, I know Virgil is being driven insane by this, but like, there's a fair amount of Tulsi supporters who seem to think that
They
her
really
staying
do
in the
not
race
understand the
benefits Sanders because they can pool their
They can
delegates.
pool their delegates.
But they don't realize that you only get a share of the delegates if you get like 15%
Yes.
of a state, of which
She has no chance
not
anywhere.
within a mile.
All she
of
can do is
fucking-
reduce
Yeah.
Bernie's top line.
Which is-
she cannot gain delegates.
Which is why I have said that, like, Tulsi, if there is anything worthwhile there, it is when you smoked Harris on that debate.
That was
stage.
great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Tulsi, if you're out there
great.
and you want to do something good in this with your platform that you still have, go all out in the next month, throwing everything possible
drop
at
kick
fucking Pete
Mayor
Buttigieg.
Pete into a
Just-
fucking crevasse.
Just everything. Like I
Yeah.
said, tell your supporters that he is shadow banning and demonetizing their content.
Yes.
And just everything that is both true and not true about Pete Buttigieg.
She's also one of these people that it's like she'd be a really cool next door neighbor. Like, she's like a nice person.
she'd be holding.
who just like she believes whatever she last read on Facebook.
She's a
and
Joe Rogan candidate.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
every sense.
Yeah,
he
Tulsi-
endorsed her for a reason.
She's a nice person who doesn't quite, you
Yeah.
know, reality is kind of a moving target for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah,
Very
Tulsi
true.
Tulsi would knock on your door one day and just be like, "I'd like to help you make a bookshelf." And it's like, what? Okay.
Yeah, so she should go all in on Pete
she needs to go
Buttigieg, then
completely
drop out of the race.
scorched earth, like when Curtis LeMay flew B-52s 5,000 feet over Tokyo.
Yes.
He needs to do 30 seconds over Tokyo
Yep.
against Pete Buttigieg, then drop out right before Iowa,
Yep.
endorse Sanders.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
only if she does that, then honestly,
God bless
I
her.
love
The
God
whole
bless
thing
her. I
worked
love you,
out fine.
Tulsi. If
She drew a
does
lot
it-
of weird crank fire from Bernie during the
Exactly,
campaign.
it was great.
Yeah.
She was a center of gravity for every crank who was either for or against
Exactly,
her.
and got
Yeah.
to keep Bernie got to keep his hands clean of all that crap.
She's a laser pointer for all the cats in the world. Like,
Absolutely. And I honestly think that's probably what's going to happen. So
I mean, good. I'm gonna. She does that. Bless you.
Yeah,
All
way to
praise
go,
to
Tulsi.
Tulsi.
Because I think she is like kind of an authentically committed person. To
Absolutely.
what?
Yeah.
It's
To
hard
what
to
is the
tell.
question?
But
she and like the
she's
thing-
not a sellout.
Pete is like Pete has so much fucking suppressed rage.
Oh God.
Oh my god.
man.
Well, he's a Hoosier. Like there is a seething rage to weird Midwestern niceness.
Where was the malice? It was in the palace of Auburn
right.
Hills.
You ever remember,
But
like,
Fucking, yeah.
shout out Ron Artest.
No, it's just like we do have the. It's like we think we're nice because we'll like help you change your tire, but that's not even that nice. We just like repress everything and then we shove our wives into wood chippers.
I don't
ever
do
think
that.
about-
I'm nice. I'm nice.
Do you ever just think about, like, he never shows it publicly, but do you ever just think about, like, how fucking angry, like, Pete Buttigieg gets at, like, Chasen for not updating their shared Google calendar for, like, going shopping at 4:15 p.m.
100%.
Yeah, if you-
you can see it in his eyes. He has latent bubbling Midwestern rage.
Yeah, like he's the meanest thing he says to Chasten during their fights is like, "Well, I would expect this from someone who interned at Boston Consulting," and then he just fucking storms
This guy
out.
has wanted to be president actively, not like as a passing fancy, but as a driving desire since he is 6 years old.
I mean,
Yeah.
there was that Twitter
So
thread
he's
this
a
week
sociopath.
that like, appears to check out because it was from years ago
Yeah.
from someone actually from where he's from who was like, isn't it funny that like someone, Mayor Butt is a kid I went to school with.
Yeah.
And like, you know, again, take it with a grain of salt. It's on Twitter, but like, I mean, it's certainly
It's
kind of
plausible.
checks
I mean, it
out,
is old.
yeah.
It's not from.
I mean, it's
He was
Yeah.
like, he was trying to, it's like at what age he was trying to figure out whether Pete or Peter sounded more presidential.
Yes,
And
yeah.
yet he kept Buttigieg.
or no, he like also
he's
workshopped
changed the
the
pronunciation of that a couple times in different races.
my
He's
God.
tried out different pronunciations.
Oh my
Which
God.
is weird because the merch that his,
Motherfucker don't even know his own name.
the merch that his campaign sells
Boot
is a
edge
t-shirt
edge.
that tells you how to pronounce it, which says boot edge edge. It's like a
Which
phonetic.
is how
yeah.
what I thought it was.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. Who
But
the
that's
fuck-
not what when he was running for state treasurer. He pronounced it differently.
We'll have to look into how it was pronounced back then.
No. This man is a complete psychopath.
He should have used his middle name, except it's probably Fauntleroy or
Does
something.
anybody remember that show? Oh, it's Montgomery. His name is Peter Paul Montgomery Buttigieg.
Actually,
good name.
he should have gone with Montgomery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What does he think?
Peter
Buttigieg makes
Montgomery.
him sound ethnic?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably. Honestly,
yeah. Yes.
if Pete and Tom Cotton ever shake hands, they'll like just
Ooh.
birth a demonic LinkedIn child. Fucking pure ambition.
If they shake hands, it'll be like when Ron Silver touches past Ron Silver
Yes,
from Time,
Time
Cop.
Cop.
Yeah.
No, like he's the kind of guy. I don't know if there was
When
a
he
show.
loses, may God have mercy on us all.
On Chasen.
Well, Chasen
May God have mercy on
specifically.
Chasen.
Oh, yeah.
Pete is gonna put a
But I
fucking,
believe he
Pete's
lives-
gonna put a fucking M4A1 stop mod in their dog that they bought in 2018's mouth and just fucking paint the walls of their like
Dude,
there's
that
some,
Midwestern rage.
they have some dumb shit. They have some dumb shit in their house called like, this is our premium TV room. We watch premium cable shows in this room,
And do
we watch
puzzles
This
and
Is
do
Us.
jigsaw
We watch
puzzles.
This Is Us in the kitchen, but premium cable, that's this room.
We don't have a TV in our bedroom. We're not this kind of
Yeah,
people.
no, we read books in there. But Pete's gonna just the premium cable room is getting a dog blood makeover when he loses. that corgi is blowing up.
He's gonna
it's
make
taking
Chase-
7 5.56 NATO rounds. To
And
the
you know
fucking
what?
soul.
In Indiana, that's legal.
He's
Yeah,
gonna make
exactly.
Jason do it though.
yeah.
He's
Do
gonna
it.
make Jason pull the trigger.
Show me how
Yeah, yeah.
fucking. Show me how sorry you are.
A
you little
single
fucking-
tear
yeah.
rolling down his. I don't want to do it.
But I would, if you told me that when Buttigieg is at home, he just curls up into a cardboard box for 8 hours and then gets out and then goes and does a day's work, I would believe you. I believe that he would just sit there, that he does not have a life.
I bet
does
he-
not
I
have
bet he has
anything inside of him.
A soundproof screaming room.
Yeah, but just something like he has
Yeah.
no desires for any conventional things, no sexual desires.
Yeah.
He has
When
no.
Ben Morris said
he is
he's
an empty-
LGBT CIA.
He is, he is a hollow. He is
That's
a
really
a
good.
hungry ghost. He's just this
Yeah.
empty vessel who cannot be sated. All power is his only desire.
Okay, well, we did Buttigieg. There's really nothing left in the Kamala piece. I think we pretty much covered it. But you know, again,
R.I.P.
Beto dead, Kamala dead,
Today-
Pete
Steve
Buttigieg,
Bullock.
your nest parody metaphor, not actually a threat.
By the way, Steve Bullock today.
See Bullock out. Oh, and also,
Forgot about
actually, can we just take a brief moment to
yes.
salute Admiral Sestak?
Can we get the taps going?
Yeah.
Can we get some taps
Was he
going?
lost
Chat?
at sea?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
Two Japanese torpedoes slammed to the side of his campaign. 400 men go into the water. Only assess that came
only
out.
since that came out. I honestly really respect the Admiral. He has a charisma and a passion that I found very disarming when I met him. And I certainly would have rather have seen him in the debates and in the top tier of candidates than basically every other person we've had to deal with other than fucking Bernie. Like, if we'd had some C-Stack action instead of fucking Mike Bennett for 2 months, I would have really appreciated that.
So, salute and respect to the Admiral. Again, I think it was basically only him on that campaign, which really was incredible. Like
He
when
was a one-man band.
When he came to the dojo in Des Moines, he had no staff with him at all.
That
like,
owns.
we could have, like I said, like at the time, I was like, we could kidnap him right now. Like, this is insane. This guy's a former admiral. What's he doing here?
He did bring a bottle of barbecue sauce.
You will see that in our short film about Des Moines, by
Because
the way,
we
about the Iowa
thought-
State Fair.
Because we kind of had told him we were going to be barbecuing. But of course...
We said we were going to have a lyrical cookout.
Oh my god.
That is
Like, come to
cute.
the cipher, spit.
Did you please tell me you didn't show this nice man lyrical
No,
cookout,
no.
the
God,
worst
no.
thing ever
God, no.
recorded.
God,
yeah.
no. He probably would have liked it, though. He'd be like, that's neat.
No, that's what we're trying to get here in America. Creativity.
Yeah.
So, salute to the Admiral. Bye-bye to Sheriff Bullock, Beto, Kamala, Pete Buttigieg. But, like, here's the thing. Can't rest on your laurels.
Nope.
Pete Buttigieg, Biden, and Warren
That's it.
all still
Keep going.
there.
They all
Keep
gotta go
going.
down.
They got to go down.
It's like a video game. Keep moving up to bigger and bigger bosses.
Yes, exactly. Let's move to our boy Bernard and another section on the New York Times, checking in on our good boy Freeway Ross Douthat, who comes out this week with his case for Bernie.
All right.
Yes?
Yeah.
What's the trick
what's
here?
he playing at here?
What's the sneaky little fuck
What's
up
the
to?
catch here? So Ross, in his New York Times opinion column, presents his case for Bernie Sanders. Now, I will, of course, never give Ross credit for anything.
Of course
and
not.
then I think as we go through, I have a theory about what he's really doing here. But what is interesting about this piece is that out of anyone who works for the New York Times, and I'm including their political reporters and the op-ed people, in this column is the first time I've read in the New York Times any kind of like what approaches like not opinion, but just an accurate accounting of like the facts about
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders and his campaign that I have never encountered anywhere else in the Times.
Yeah.
Because liberal hegemony is tight.
Oh, yeah.
And because he's
Yeah.
a weird conservative, he could be like, I don't know, I think I'll write this today.
So I mean, like I'm gonna skip the beginning. Like he talks about like he goes through the Kamala Harris and why that doesn't work, and like why the Democrats are still looking for like someone to coalesce around. And he goes here. There's an interesting case that the candidate best positioned to do this, the one whose support is the most diverse right now,
Yeah.
is the candidate whom Obama allegedly promised to intervene against if his nomination seemed likely, the resilient socialist from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. And Ross does use the word resilient, which is honestly, Bernie at every level
he's
has just
solid as a
stayed
rock.
just
He's a
like the little
scrapper.
engine that could.
Yeah. He never budged. He never changed.
He hasn't moved. And
the
the
polls,
campaign
yeah.
is staying where it is.
He hasn't changed his message. His support has remained consistent in
Yep.
about the
For liberals, that's a mistake.
Yeah. So he goes here, like other candidates, Sanders' support has a demographic core. Just as Elizabeth Warren depends on very liberal professionals and Joe Biden on older minorities and moderates, correct.
Yeah.
Bernie depends intensely on the young, but his polling also shows an interesting better than you expect pattern given stereotypes about his support. He does better than you expect with minorities despite having struggled with them in 2016, with moderate voters and 100K plus earners despite being famously left-wing, and with young women despite all the Bernie bro business.
Always the case.
This pattern explains why, in early state polling, Sanders shows the most strength in very different environments, leading Warren everywhere in the latest 538 average. Again, I love that little dig at Nate Silver.
Yeah, fuck you,
Who fucking has
motherfucker.
tried over and over and over again to invent any reason. Like Real Clear Politics, like just 2 weeks ago, like they're the ones who do the aggregate of all the
Yeah.
polls, and like they're the ones that like they put everything to like just overall who is leading in the like 2 weeks ago. Sanders got back into the number 2 spot over Warren. Nate Silver had this whole lengthy thread about like, well, if you look at our modeling,
It doesn't really indicate
like it's just
that.
so yeah. Again, according to the latest 538 average, beating Biden in Iowa, challenging him in more diverse Nevada, matching Buttigieg in New Hampshire, and leading him easily in South Carolina and California.
Yes.
Now, I have stacked the argument slightly and left out a crucial axis of division where Sanders does worse than you expect. He struggles badly with his fellow Social Security recipients,
Oh,
the
yeah.
over
Yeah.
65.
These old fucks.
This
Yeah,
weakness and
well, old people also hate people who remind them of themselves. 'Cause they're full of
Exactly,
regret.
yes.
and they also have more money because
Yeah.
if they're old and you are still alive, it's because you have money.
One of the polls I did actually kind of want to look at was, and I don't know if they have this information, but like comparing senior support for Bernie in states ranked by senior poverty levels. Because so Indiana, for example, we have the most poor old people. We just
That's
don't
on your
even
license
care.
plates.
We just throw them out in the woods when we're done with them. You're not useful anymore, Grandma.
Indiana, number one in leading cause of death, exposure.
Pretty much. No, by the way, since we're going to be in the UK, Matt, I suggest you watch some television because they have these lovely commercials about loneliness is really tough for older people around the holidays. And I found this hilarious because I'm like, we just let them die. But anyway, yeah.
If you're cold, they're cold. Bring your grandfather inside for Christmas.
I really
at least.
bet it's also ranked by wealth, and because there are a lot of poor older people too.
So he goes, this weakness and Biden's strength of the same voters are obvious reasons to doubt the case for Bernie as the unifier, Bernie as the eventual nominee, especially since Sanders has thus far ignored my advice. I know, the nerve, that he reassures skeptics by telling them that he has a record as a deal maker, that he can moderate on certain issues so they can feel safe supporting him, even if they aren't ready for the revolution.
That literally the only reason we like him is that he doesn't do that.
But still, Ross continues, if you are a wavering Democrat concerned about both party unity and ultimate electability, about exciting all the diverse factions of your base while also competing for the disaffected, both the relative breadth of Bernie's primary coalition and his decent polling among non-voters and Obama-Trump voters are reasons to give him another look. The decent polling, I suspect, reflects a sense among voters drawn to populism that Bernie is different from not only the more centrist candidates, latecomers Michael Bloomberg and Deval Patrick especially, but Buttigieg as well, but also from his fellow left-winger Warren, who has fully embraced the culture war breadth of the new progressivism, while Sanders remains fundamentally an economic policy monomaniac. Now, here is where Ross's explanation of this does get into, I think, a little bit of the trickery that he's doing here, because as a New York Times columnist, he knows that he's writing for an audience largely of Warren and Buttigieg supporters. So he does this little turn at the end where he basically says, my case for Bernie, he gets here, he's still a social liberal, of course, and he isn't in the culturally conservative economic populist quadrant where so many underrepresented voters reside, but for the kind of American who is mostly with the Democrats on economics, but wary of progressivism's zest for the culture war, Sanders' socialism might be strangely reassuring, as a signal of what he actually cares about and what battles he might eschew for the sake of his anti-plutocratic goals. At the least, he's no more radical on an issue like abortion than a studied moderate like Mayor Pete. This is why, despite technically preferring a moderate like Biden or Amy Klobuchar, I keep coming back to the conservatives' case for Bernie, which rests on the perhaps wrong but still attractive supposition that he's the liberal most likely to spend all his time trying to tax the rich and leave cultural conservatives alone.
I'm sorry. Douthat's right.
He may, what I interpret by Douthat here is that this is his way.
You don't want to give him an inch, I know.
Of course,
but
I will
he's
never.
Right.
No. This is his way of sticking the knife in and assuring the people he knows who actually read him and take him seriously that this is he's giving them a reason not to vote for Bernie, which is he's implying that he's a squish on abortion or gay rights or any of the social issues, which I don't think he is at all.
And none of his readers were going to vote for Bernie anyway.
Exactly. But also this idea that he will leave cultural conservatives alone. What the fuck would that look like?
Well,
to
that's
people
the
like
thing.
Ross?
No, he doesn't run a culture war campaign.
that's true.
Which is
That
a good
is true.
idea.
But that implies that if he doesn't, that Republicans won't. They're going to have even more of an incentive to push culture war stuff if Bernie's the nominee.
Yeah, well, I think that's completely fine. The left allegedly won the culture war. Give it to the right. I don't care. Let them have their own TV. Oh wait, they have a few TV stations. I don't give a shit. Let them have their dumb bullshit, their dumb fucking media bullshit. It doesn't do anything. We control the media now, and we don't have any power. I think that doing a culture war lead on economic issues has failed us over and over again, and it is also specifically produced policies and institutions that are focused on culture war with no economic basis.
For the Ross Douthats of the world, like if Bernie had like a purely like policy-based approach to like healthcare, of which like abortion was like absolutely a major, just accepted as a de facto
We're
part
still
of
going to
healthcare.
fight right-wingers,
But, like,
we
Ross
don't
wouldn't-
also need to alienate people who are going to start assuming that you're dumb libs.
But Ross would like by definition like perceive that as antagonizing cultural conservatives.
Yeah, well,
like,
we're
I just
not
think-
trying to win, Ross.
Well, actually, like, what I'm saying is like that's what, like, there's no winning with fucking Ross Douthat. I guess this is what I'm saying. I don't like my take on this thing is I think it's funny that in this piece he, because he's a right winger playing to a liberal audience, has managed to smuggle in a few of the only like actually factually accurate descriptions of, let's say, Bernie's campaign and who supports him, as opposed to the other Democrats. But overall, like he's not thrilled about the idea of Bernie Sanders being president, and I think he's couching it in this terms that basically implies that Sanders is a squish on social issues to signal to his liberal readership not to vote for him. That's my take on what Ross is
I
doing.
think
with
that's
this
entirely
article.
possible, but I don't think anyone who's like, ooh, got to read Ross today is going to be swayed by this because he's a little shitty snake. But he's not wrong about this.
Well, let's move on to finally the final candidate who, let's be honest, often gets lost in the mix of the people we talk about on this show. But this one's for you, Felix. Klobuchar, Amy Klobuchar, the last dragon. Wouldn't you believe it? There's even people writing columns about her. This comes courtesy of Jennifer Rubin of the Washington Post, who writes, Klobuchar isn't in the top tier, but here's why she might be before long.
That's what I've been saying.
I think Klobuchar is polling at about 1% nationally right now.
Talk about Midwestern rage. Remember when we were watching her in the debates and like Nick was like, she's vibrating.
No, the
love
last
her.
two debates, her forelock keeps just vibrating at the frequency of her.
She's thrumming.
Yeah, she's clearly filled with incredible levels of anger.
That was the last one where she went, yeah, a lot of people don't think I'm like pretty or tall enough to be here. And like, that's not a requirement. Presidential, like you're next to like Cory Booker. Like no, this is not a looks contest. I guarantee you. But she owns. She's just like a perfect square of rage.
Yep.
I love her.
I mean, obviously, like Pete Buttigieg is the perfect example of like media manufacturing consent behind like a candidate made out of whole cloth who's been mayor of a shitty city of like, again, 2 elections where like 8,000 people voted for him. And now he has, courtesy of, media propaganda, like they've put full force behind him to like make his candidacy a thing.
yeah,
And
he won the
it's
David
working.
Geffen. Because he won the David Geffen primary.
And it's working.
Really, that's
But-
really it.
Yeah. But what's fascinating is that they're still trying to do it for Klobuchar. Like before the Democratic debate, the most
Yeah, they
recent
were pumping
one,
her up.
there was like all these spate of articles that I was reading going into that debate, being like, tonight could be Klobuchar's moment, and it's like it still hasn't happened.
To do
That's
what?
no, but that's like
To distinguish yourself, to get a bump in the polls,
That's
to have a moment.
that's another reason why she rocks is because like with Pete, there's clearly like even if there isn't like any conscious back and forth between him and the media, like there's this understood thing like, oh, Pete's gonna have a moment tonight, and he goes up there and he like, the only thing he really can do, which is like make an Obama like truism that really animates like to pieces of shit who own Pelotons type thing. But for Amy, like they keep trying to do this with her, and all she just does is just like vibrate her perfect rectangle of anger and be like, do you honestly think you deserve health care? Like I fucking love her. Like they're trying to set up a T-ball for her, and she's just angrily sitting in the batting cage throwing a ball in the air and missing. Like she's fucking awesome.
Well, you will really like this article then. This is courtesy of Jennifer Rubin, one of the resident goblins of the Washington Post, who writes here, no one is going to outwork Senator Amy Klobuchar. The candidate who kicked off her campaign in a snowstorm is going all out to win in her neighboring state of
Okay,
Iowa.
well, she wasn't pulling a plow. Let's not go crazy.
That
When we saw-
Although
when we saw it-
I have
wait, wait.
no doubt that she could.
That was the moment I started supporting her, was when she made all those political reporters just stand in terrible weather, just the worst they could, out of any announcement, just the worst weather, just raging blizzard. She didn't have a fucking hat on. It was so cool. Oh my god.
This little thing about I kicked off my campaign in a snowstorm. when Matt Virgil and I saw her in Iowa,
Yeah.
that was like a huge part of her Iowa stump speech was just like, I remember when I was in a snowstorm and there was snow on my head. And like, what's so funny about that is, as soon as that was over, she just like reamed out her stats. Like, you it was like the scene in The Irishman with Hoffo. You dumb motherfucker.
How did you let me do that on a snowstorm? You don't check the weather.
You let him sell insurance.
Yeah,
His
but
fucking father.
again, this was the first hit used against Amy, but it's like, you know who deserves to be abused? People who are like excited to go and work for Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So she goes, she does not shy away, as some candidates do, from the mainstream media's top interviewers. She made the TV rounds on Sunday. On Meet
That's so brave of her to go on TV.
When she's running for president.
On Meet the Press, she made clear that she is not the richest candidate, but she has little patience with the late entrants trying to buy their way into contention.
I actually did like that.
This is really funny, though, this exchange here. Chuck Todd, what's the criticism of your campaign so far that's resonated the most with you, that you think, you know what, that's fair. I'm trying to
I do
change.
suck.
What a great question.
She goes, well, I think it would always be nice to get in more money. And we have, they're always saying, oh, you haven't raised as much money as some of the other guys. Blah, blah, blah. She goes on. Todd says, you seem particularly insulted by Bloomberg's entry. She goes, well, it's about money in politics for me. I have admiration for the work he's done. She's like, oh, no. Like, I'm not mad at Bloomberg because like he spoke at the Republican convention, is like a cynical billionaire, like running to prevent the Democratic Party from ever doing anything good. Like, no, I have some abstract complaint with him about campaign finance.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's more also, I think, to her that she's, in her mind, a scholarship kid, and he's
I would
just bought
never
his way
insult
in.
the money. I would never insult that much money. It's such an amazing amount of money.
But that was great when, like, it was like, there was this rash of people saying you can't buy your way. Like, every candidate's like comments about Bloomberg entering the race was covered, and like Klobuchar's was just like, no. No, I worked hard to get you. You don't just get to cut in line.
Do you think like Tom Steyer, he got into the race because it's like a long con plot to get abused by Amy? He's like, oh, I hated if you stepped on the back of my head for entering the race late with all
He
my
does
money.
seem like he's winging it. He must have an ulterior
yeah,
motive.
yeah. No, he wants Amy
He did get
to
divorced right before he ran.
Yeah, no, exactly. He wants Amy to tie him up against the wall of the green room and just fucking whip a stapler at his forehead.
Shoot him with paintballs.
Yeah. You like that, you little fucking pig? Can you buy a Facebook ad about this, you little fucking cunt?
On CNN, she reminded viewers she was working hard, but also not allowing herself to get knocked off course by the Twitterverse and far-left members of her party.
Yes.
Unlike Beto, Kamala,
Yep.
Yeah.
and soon Elizabeth Warren,
If
Yeah.
you told,
Buttigieg,
if you
Joe
told
Biden.
Amy Klobuchar she was corn cobbing, she'd just fucking beat your ass.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, she's not allowing...
She's a meet me in the parking lot kind of poster.
And you know
Yes,
what? Respect
yes.
to her, like, because she's not getting thrown off base by the Twitterati. Like, I feel like she said, like, she just says, you don't deserve health care.
Yeah.
You don't deserve shit. I'm not going to give it to
Yeah,
you.
maybe if you're nice, I'll like let you refinance your student loans. Like it's so odd. Like Pete's like there's so many fucking worms in this shit who like last January it was just like
Oh, she's crawling under the... Oh.
Listener B, one of my cats, is crawling under a blanket right now.
And it's adorable.
No, don't be fooled. She's a demon. She's a little demon. She's
How they get
evil,
ya.
Evil.
But yeah,
evil little cat.
January 2019, it was like, whoa, oh wow, this is amazing. Am I watching the Naxalite primary? Just everyone, this is amazing. Everyone just wants, fucking card check and Medicare for all. It's, either everything's like really like these people had a huge change of heart or they're fucking lying, like always. But with Amy, like from the get-go, she's just like, I'm going to stand up there and we're going to talk affordable mortgages. Like, fuck
It's
yeah.
time to
yeah.
get realistic, okay, folks?
I mean,
She is exactly what she says she is.
Yeah, I mean, like respect for her for being a real one. Not playing to the crowd, and by the crowd I mean literally any voter, because she's polling at like 1%. But
Yeah.
no, she's just saying like
she's like the mom in a romantic comedy badgering her daughter into settling. It's like, you're not getting any younger, Bernice.
Yeah.
she's like like
I still think of her as a Pam Poovey without the sex appeal. I think that's her ideal kind of character. She's got a lot of like hearty sturdy energy. She is who she is. She likes herself. She's
Oh, yeah.
confident.
Asked about her new line that, quote, "we can't afford to screw this up," Klobuchar explained that if Donald Trump gets elected, shame on us. I mean that we need to bring our party together and bring with us independents and moderate Republicans, just like I have done in all my races. She continued, "What I'm saying is we need to put someone at the head of the ticket that can actually bring people with us. And I am the only one on that debate stage that has led a ticket over and over again where I have brought in suburbs, rural areas, and urban areas in a big, big way. And every time I have led a ticket, we flip the state house in my state." She argued that I can do the same nationally. Felix, you think that like doing that in Minnesota is the same as doing it nationally?
Absolutely not. No, like that's just bullshit. That's just complete bullshit. Like it's a very unique state, but I mean, the reason Amy like did so well in Minnesota, A, she did have family in politics, but B, like she's a grinder. Amy's such a fucking grinder, and like people in Minnesota are. I mean, they're not really nice. Like that's the joke, but like they will be rolled over by a forceful personality, and that's Amy.
On healthcare, Klobuchar made clear she is not repeating the mistakes of Senator Elizabeth Warren in attaching herself to Medicare for all, just as Democratic voters are wisely thinking ahead to electability and how the nominee would be characterized in the general election.
Again, I respect it.
Yeah,
Klobuchar has embraced her no-nonsense image of someone willing to tell constituents no.
yeah. No, it is. It's. I will say this: like Minnesota, like they have like a leftier Democratic Party than a lot of places.
Democrat farm labor.
Yeah. And so it is like kind of accomplishment that like even if it was at a time when the Democratic Party was moving significantly to the right, that she just willed her way in there. Like, and her thing has always just been no. It is kind of impressive.
She has developed an unusual signature move, namely debunk the pie in the sky proposals of staunch progressives.
Yeah.
It's her finishing move. Yeah. Undaunted by their arguments that she is not thinking big enough. If Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders do not win the nomination, much of the credit should go to Klobuchar, who has effectively grabbed the party by the lapels and told its members to snap out of it. I mean, if they don't get the nomination, it's not fucking Klobuchar who did
No.
it. It's
No.
fucking Barack Obama,
Yeah.
who, again, literally, we know like this last week has come out.
It's the DNC.
I will
yeah.
personally intervene if Sanders is the nomination.
Yeah.
And also, I despise Elizabeth Warren and will do anything to
Yes.
prevent her from getting the nomination because it will be a refutation of my legacy, which is one of absolute compromise and failure.
Yeah. I mean, Obama, if this was like on the table, someone was like, sacrifice like one of your kids and Amy Klobuchar will be the nominee. He would do it.
Or probably Deval Patrick is probably who he would prefer. But
Right. But he would take Amy.
yeah. If she or another electable moderate gets the nomination, the party will be in her debt. She is doing her best to make certain Democrats do not screw this up. So there you go. Jennifer Warren on
Jennifer Warren.
Jennifer Warren. Ugh, God.
I love it.
Jennifer Rubin.
More people writing about politics who had the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind procedure done on their memory of the 2016 election.
Yeah.
Because all of this is always predicated on, as if we didn't live in a world where Hillary ran that campaign and lost.
Yeah, and also like they're stuck in the Obama era where like he kind of ran on no,
Yeah, but he
and
has
so
a
they're like,
unique-
oh well,
he
we'll
was-
just do that again.
He was such a uniquely charismatic figure that he convinced Democrats that they could get away
I
with
think
stuff
that's a little
that they
overstated.
couldn't. How did he win? How did he do so much better than the rest of the
I
party?
think we had 8 years of president we're all not too excited about, and we're like, oh God, fine, whatever. I'm just saying, like, yeah, like Obama charm, whatever, but also like he definitely, it was greased for him.
Yeah, no, he was willing to do the thing of reassuring all the big stakeholders in 2008 that he wasn't that kind of insurgent candidate.
Right.
And he also like he was a horoscope candidate. He spoke in vague enough
Oh,
terms
yeah.
to mean anything to anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
So when he said no, which he did still many times run on, we're not doing that. Like he did it in such a way that people were like, yeah, but I know what you really mean.
But I mean, like, yeah, same time, that's like a lot of candidates.
That's most of them,
Yeah.
except Amy, who's just like, no,
Yeah.
you can't have it. We're not even discussing that.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't appear to be working too well.
No, yeah,
Her
absolutely
moment's
not.
coming any day now.
Absolutely
Well, I mean,
not.
if the theory that these are all bubbles in Iowa and Mayor Pete is the latest bubble and somebody else is going to take the baton from him, who's left? Maybe it is Amy. She is right next door in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
I mean, who knows? But again, let's just close out by saying again, if you're in Iowa or any neighboring state, you know what to do. Time, money, door to door, Sanders. That's
Phone
it.
bank.
Yeah.
We
Get
gotta
out there.
win Iowa.
He's got to win Iowa.
We gotta win
If he wins
Iowa.
Iowa, I honestly, I swear to God, I feel like the dominoes fall.
We gotta win Iowa, and it's totally within our grasp.
absolutely.
To do. It's very like he's very well
We can do
positioned.
it.
I'll also say about Biden, this is like like sort of campaign trivial like horse race shit, but like not a single nominee who has led at this point in the race has ever been the nominee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, none of the front runners have ever.
Yeah,
made it
just
to the fucking,
don't get fucking
convention,
thrown off
yeah.
by polls at all. Because,
Exactly.
Like,
Polls are cucked.
yeah.
We, you know what you need to do in Iowa, New Hampshire, or just anywhere you are. You know what you need to do for Bernie. I'll just say to close out this episode, we've gone through a whole list of the candidates. I'll just remind you again: Beto,
Dead.
done.
Dead.
Kamala Harris
On their death.
on the fucking life support. Buttigieg, Warren, Biden.
That's it.
You know what to do.
Climb the staircase.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye, everybody.